All right, we're going to have a conversation about the position of the neck and what is the most comfortable and aligned choice in working with the core activation. Since I was just saying we want to we want to change from leading with our head to leading with our heart, well, what does that look like and feel like for the neck? And so I'm going to come right into my inversion and make sure that you're not straining the neck. That's the most important thing, because if we're used to lifting with the scalings or the front of the neck, then we have this kind of tendency to kink the back of the neck as an alternative if we're not using these muscles. And I was just describing that we're going to keep the front and back of the neck long, and without kinking the back of the neck, we're going to press the center of the skull. So crown of the head stays lifted, the center of the skull into an invisible wall. Okay, so that's the engagement. So chin is not lifted or tucked in. It's neutral, and we're pressing back. Okay, and the neck is going to stay nice and long like that, and then we're going to practice keeping the entire torso in a straight line from tailbone to crown of the head and lifting with the chest. So let's move back into our bicep curls and keep the back of the head pressing into that wall to resist the temptation to lift the forehead, right? So our gaze is slightly back. And then from there, see if you can lift from the core and the entire torso. So the core being the entire front of the spine, all the way up to the heart, okay? And then once we got that down, we're going to find our balance point. And so even here, I'm pressing the back of my head into that invisible wall to keep my head in line with my body, and then scissoring. So I'm balancing and then scissoring without straining my neck. Now, if this is a strain for you, then you can just leave your head pointing down towards the ground and do these little scissors. But the idea is we come into that flat spine, we find the pivot point, we balance, and then we scissor. Okay? So only go as far as it feels good. And is there any other questions that you had about that?
So when we're up in this spot, how can we check
So
ourselves?
you just have to feel it, because you need to drop your hips a lot. So when we balance, you have to drop your hips a lot, even more. Drop your hips down. And you can't look at your hips because then you're rounding your spine. So you have to feel it. That's it. So your hips are dropping way lower than you think. Most people's hips are too high, and you just have to drop them down. Make that nice L shape in the body. Really good question. When we're ready, we're just going to scissor kick down. And in time, I promise you, the neck will be much happier pressing back into that invisible wall. That's why we use our chillaxin arms to mimic that behavior and relax the head back. But in time, we're going to get the head to sit over the spine in a much more aligned way and let the heart blossom forward without flaring out the ribs. The ribs are going to stay neutral. They're pulling down, connected to our pubic bone. I'm just going to turn around so you can see this a little bit more in the video. So we're imagining our ribs pulling down, connected to our pubic bone, and yet this little dynamic tension in the center, the sternum is lifting up. And when the sternum lifts up, the head is pressing back into that invisible wall. And so then the spine has a whole new arrangement, a whole new alignment. And if that feels uncomfortable at first, you can use your hands and press your head into your hands to get that lift. So it lifts the sternum without flaring out the rib cage. And we're working on separating and isolating those different parts of the body. We thought that conversation would be really helpful for you guys to work on. And this is, of course, the intermediate practice. So these are more details and more alignment principles than we typically give in the basic training. And this is how we really start to drop into our ergonomics and our proper spinal alignment. That ultimately will heal the lower back and heal neck and shoulder pain, which is a chronic issue for most people I work with. We're going to be right back with more core activation.